The 75-year-old defendant faces a second-degree murder charge in connection to the death of his stepdaughter, Alissa. Alissa disappeared back in 2001 after leaving school early. The person who allegedly picked her up, her stepdad, Michael Turney. Alissa was never seen again after that day. Detective William Anderson is expected to take the stand again on Monday when court resumes. The state indicated its desire to rest after the detective's testimony. They're moving right along. For more on Thursday's testimony, let's head out to Phoenix, Arizona, where we find Court TV legal correspondent Julia Janae, who has the latest on this trial against Michael Turney.
Good morning. That's right. Here in Phoenix, we are expecting the state to rest their case in chief. They've just got a little bit more redirect examination of the witness who's on the stand now. Court is dark on Fridays, so things will start back up on Monday, and we could be in closing arguments. But on Thursday, the jury heard revealing testimony through phone calls, recorded phone calls, where they heard not only Alissa's voice, but also a pretty jaw-dropping call from Mike Turney, where he is revealing his disdain for dealing with his daughter, Alissa.
I call it a bad time. Any day today is a bad day. Sarah don't want to go to school. Alyssa's supposed to go in late. She lost her wallet. You know, I'm giving her basically an alternative cops where she can bond back with me and the family and stop being such a distance this family from all the problems we've had from her boyfriend. And she said no. So for the first time in my life, I've got to take a kid that I love and call the cops. Probably going to lose the house. Everything else is going to be over because of some stupid ass bitch. More than likely going to run away anyway after she gets busted. They're not going to put her in jail this time, I almost guarantee it. In other words, my life sucks. It's just terrible. I can have a good time with Sarah so long as Alissa doesn't. She's always in there with something. I don't give a what it is. Now I'm going to have to put up with and deal with some that's doing all kinds of to this family.
While that audio played in court, some of the jurors looked stunned. Sarah, the sister of Alissa, she broke down into tears in the gallery. Her brother James was sitting next to her, tried to console her. Then the prosecution played another recorded call for this jury. It was placed about a month before Alissa went missing. The teen was speaking to her aunt Lynette. This was after a disagreement with her father over her boyfriend.
I'd be freaking out all of a sudden, just... It's my dad. What do you expect? Huh? What do you expect? He's always like that. I know, but he hasn't done that in like many years. Because you haven't been around him.
The next big question in this case is, will the defendant testify? I was watching his face really closely when the judge asked his team, were they planning to call him? He showed no visible reaction as his attorney said that they are going to reserve that conversation until after the state rests its case. Reporting in Phoenix, Arizona, Julia Janae with Court TV.
All right, thanks to Julia. Let's bring back in trial attorney Vonda Sargent and forensic psychologist Dr. John Delatorre. John, what do you hear in those recordings?
Annoyance, really. I know he says that he loves her, right? He does make that statement, but everything that comes before and comes after suggests that he has no idea what love actually means, or he wouldn't have been saying any of those things. And yes, you could be frustrated and upset with your children. That absolutely can happen. But the way in which he's describing who she is as a person and the awful things that he's saying about her, that's not real love. That's someone who's annoyed. And it's not a far leap from someone who's annoyed like this consistently to moving forward to engaging in a behavior like that he's been accused of.
Vonda, are those tapes damning, or can the defense turn them around?
I think they're damning. I think if you take those tapes in the context of everything else that the jury's heard, the contract that she had to sign when she wanted to live with her brother, the contract that she had to sign saying that he didn't sexually abuse her, I hear more than annoyance. I hear control, and I hear a man who's not treating Alissa as a daughter, but more as a partner or a replacement spouse. That's what I'm hearing from him. a lot of control from him, and she is bucking from that control. And that's what I'm hearing from him. Far more than annoyance, but more control, and she's slipping from his grasp, and he's not going to let that happen.
John, you heard Julius talk about him possibly taking the stand, the decision the defense is going to make after the prosecution rests. After listening to him in those audio recordings and what you know about the case, is this a guy that can function on the stand, or is he a potential disaster?
No, he's a potential disaster, and yes, it absolutely is about control. But there's more to control than just the word itself. There's all different kinds of underlying nuance associated with it. When he gets on the stand, he doesn't believe that he did anything wrong. If he believed that, then we would have seen emotional states come out of him, in which we haven't. There's no way in which he's going to present himself as a character that the jury can sort of align themselves with. That can't happen.
Vonda, no body, no crime scene. You have this runaway letter. I'm running away. I'm taking $300. And so much time has elapsed. Is this potentially a case where jurors might, at the end of the day, say, I kind of think he did it, but I don't know for sure. Reasonable doubt seeps in.
You know, it could very well. I think this case is a case study in circumstantial evidence. We always hear people talk, oh, it's just circumstantial evidence. It's just circumstantial evidence, not realizing that it has the exact same weight as direct evidence. So I'm not certain, depending on how the prosecution is able to educate this juror, they might not go and say, I think he did it, but I'm not too sure. If they are effective in explaining how circumstantial evidence has the exact same weight as direct evidence, I think that it can be sunk. I think the amount of time that is passed, I don't think that's going to be a factor that the jury will rely on in this case. So I think that there's a good chance that he'll be convicted.
Interesting. This is a case that is circumstantial, John, and for jurors, it's this balance, right? And the defense has been very strong and aggressive, challenging almost the jury. You know, this, you can't, and I'm sure we're going to hear this in the close, you can't convict him. You might hate him. You can't convict him because it's not all there. To what degree in this world that we live in now do we want it all? We want the forensics, we want the video, we want the things that just aren't here.
Yeah, you know, in this post-CSI world in which all the forensic science and stuff like that's become more mainstream and more popular, everybody wants it. But here's the problem is that I think this jury can understand that there's so much time in between, that there's so much sort of this gap in between from when the crime allegedly occurred to now, that I think that some of them may be willing to forego this need for direct evidence and see what's in front of them only, which is what you want the jury to see. Only what's in front of them, and make the decision that, yes, more than likely something has happened. And I think some of them may be able to get beyond a reasonable doubt.
All right, it's going to be fascinating to see this thing wrap up. The closing arguments are going to be fantastic, and then everybody will be on pins and needles when